You walk into your orchard to check on your harvest, and instead of perfect crops, you find tiny puncture marks across the skin of your fruit, the flesh rapidly softening and discoloring from the inside out. That silent destruction is the work of fruit flies. They operate strategically. The females inject their eggs beneath the skin of developing fruit. By the time the eggs hatch and the larvae begin feeding, the interior is ruined, and you haven't seen a single sign of damage on the surface until it's too late. The standard reaction is to drench the entire tree in expensive toxic chemical sprays. But you can stop the infestation completely using a 5-layer, 100% natural defense system. You likely already have everything you need. Grab a bottle of vinegar, sugar, neem oil, a few cloth bags, and a hand trowel. By deploying these simple items in a specific sequence, you switch from passively hoping your fruit survives to building an impenetrable fortress around your crop. Step 1 begins on the ground. Before you hang a single trap or mix any sprays, you have to eliminate the baseline population through strict orchard sanitization. Walk the perimeter of your trees and pick up every fallen, overripe, or physically damaged piece of fruit from the soil. Those dropped fruits are the primary incubators for the infestation. They provide a sheltered, nutrient-rich breeding ground for the next generation of flies to multiply. But tossing this gathered fruit onto an open compost pile is a critical mistake. Doing that simply moves the breeding ground a few feet away, allowing the larvae to hatch and immediately return to the canopy. Look at this diagram. An open compost setup lets the pests escape right back into your orchard. Instead, you must either bury the infected fruit deep in the soil or lock it inside a heavily sealed compost bin. This single, zero-cost action severs their reproductive cycle. You drastically reduce the size of the enemy force before you even engage them. With the ground clean, Step 2 targets the adult flies that survived the initial sweep. We do this by building a natural liquid interceptor. This schematic shows how to mix it. Fill a container with water, dissolve in sugar or jaggery, and add drops of vinegar. This biochemical trick perfectly mimics fermenting fruit, creating an irresistible lure that pulls flies down into the liquid. Prepare several of these containers and hang them from the lower branches evenly throughout your orchard. Check back in 24 to 48 hours. You'll see that this trap turns the pest's own biological drives against them, actively depleting the airborne population without leaving toxic residue on your crop. Step 3 moves from trapping flies to actively driving them away. You do this by applying a botanical spray, specifically neem extract, across the canopy. Neem doesn't work like a traditional poison. Instead, it contains active chemical compounds that directly disrupt the insect's growth hormones and reproductive cycles. By thoroughly coating the branches and leaves, you create a hostile, invisible shield. The surviving flies are forced to look for an easier target elsewhere. Step 4 backs up the neem spray with natural protein baits, applied to specific areas along the perimeter of your orchard. These baits intercept the adult flies as they fly in. Once they consume the protein, their internal capacity to reproduce is neutralized. Combining the neem repellent with the protein bait builds a dual-action barrier. It pushes pests away from the fruit while crippling the reproductive ability of any flies that try to push through. For your highest value crops, you need Step 5, the physical fortress. Bagging. Enclose your individual fruits inside paper or cloth bags, tying them tightly around the stem so there are zero gaps at the top. Timing here dictates success. You must bag the fruit early, while it is still hard and developing. If you wait until the flesh is soft and ripe, the eggs are likely already inside. The logic is absolute. It doesn't matter if 10 flies or 10,000 flies make it past your other defenses. They physically cannot penetrate the fabric to lay eggs. Bagging requires a higher labor investment, but for your prized fruits, it guarantees total protection and serves as an impenetrable failsafe for the harvest. You now have a synchronized system: a clean orchard floor, hanging liquid traps, botanical neem shields, perimeter protein baits, and physically guarded high-value crops. Instead of a rotting, discolored mess dropping to the floor, you finish the season by slicing into a pristine, perfectly ripe, maggot-free fruit. This is how you work with nature. You anticipate the pest's behavior and prevent the damage through layered natural systems, rather than reacting blindly with heavy chemicals. With your harvest secure, it's time to focus on growth. Subscribe to the channel and click the next video to learn how to actively multiply your orchard's fruit yield using the same natural science.